Hello, everyone. Thank you all for being here and welcome to the After Research Alumni Tell All panel. I'm Jane and I'm hosting on behalf of MacSER, McMaster Society for Engineering Research. I'll be asking the questions, but if there's anything you want to ask, feel free to leave it in the chat and we will try our best to address it. Now, please turn your attention to the wonderful MacEng alumni who I'm sharing the stage with today. They are so kind to be giving up their time. So alumni, thank you so much for being here and we are very lucky to have you. Let's start off with the logical first question, which is introduce yourselves. Talk a little bit about your interests, education, how you got into research, and how all of this has led you to the current point in your career. And we'll go in the order that you appear on my screen. So Miriam, you're first.
Thank you, Jane, and the McMaster Society for Engineering Research for organizing this panel. My name is Miriam. I am a chemical engineer. I got my master's and PhD in McMaster in the field of advanced materials and advanced manufacturing. In terms of my career, I am the founder of AI Materia. We are a team of material scientists and data scientists, and we are using artificial intelligence and machine learning for materials and product development applications. And that's it for now. And in terms of you asked about how my research helped me to go to my career. So when you do research, you're essentially trying to solve a mystery. You want to know how something works or why something happened, and that requires a set of skills. You need to be creative, you need problem-solving skills, you have to challenge yourself in new ways, and in order to deliver results, you have to learn to manage your work, your time, learn how to collaborate with others. And these are all the skills that you will take with you to your career to be a successful professional. And these all provide you with the foundation to begin and advance your career. And in my case, my work is in the same field of my research, but on a different aspect. I have an experimental engineering background, and right now I'm using data analytics and machine learning as a complement to my knowledge and expertise for providing solutions for materials and processing problems. I just want to add that one of the most exciting aspects of the research to me is its originality and novelty. And this is something that I always try to keep in mind in my work, and it will be my goal for the future, because it feels amazing when you work and deliver results on an original and new idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam. Okay, Sahr, you're next.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Jane, again for organizing this. So my name is Sahr Kokali. I'm a senior software safety engineer at GM Canada. I'm part of ADAS team, which works on automated driving and active safety software development. My work specifically, my team focuses on software safety for these features like the Super Cruise feature, which you might have heard about recently on the Cadillac Escalade. So basically, I got into this because I'm really interested in software safety, and as software becomes in everything that we use in a lot of safety critical domains, including automotive, there's a need to really look into ways to ensure the safety and avoid hazards that could cause various things, including crashes. So at GM, we have a vision of zero emissions, zero congestion, zero crashes. So my work towards this, vision of zero crashes. So I did all 3 degrees in software engineering at McMaster. I did my undergrad, and then after that went directly into doing my master's. After that, I worked at IBM Canada for a few years. And I guess working in industry really kind of made me realize how much passion I had for research. So I really wanted to go back and do a PhD. I was fortunate to do my PhD, started off part-time, and I worked with GM R&D as I did it. So I was a researcher in GM R&D for a few years while completing my PhD. So that really allowed me to understand the problems that the automotive industry faces. And my work focused on using model-based software engineering approaches to support software development in automotive and come up with new novel approaches for software safety analysis. So that really allowed me to go into the work that I do now, and our team is growing. It's really exciting time for us at General Motors. I help lead this team, and we're currently searching for new software safety engineers to join us.
Cool, thank you. Okay, Salim, you're up.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for inviting me to this panel. It's really a pleasure getting to participate. My name is Salim ElBuzity, and I'm currently a research and development scientist at Canadian Nuclear Labs. I completed my PhD in mechanical engineering at McMaster in 2018, and I was working on doing research in flow-induced vibration for nuclear power plant components. And that's really how I ended up in my current role. So I was regularly presenting the research that we were doing in lab at conferences, and I got to meet a few folks from the industry, and a position had opened up at CNL, and I ended up here, and it was really cool because I got to apply to a job where I would be doing the same research that I had done for my PhD. So I thought I was kind of getting lucky there. And what was interesting is basically within a couple months, that research program basically got canceled because of funding. And so what's interesting is that, you know, in the industry, that's one of the differences you'll see compared to academia, where you can have a professor kind of just study the same thing or work on the same thing for 30 years if they feel like it. But industry is really kind of driven by market demand and by stakeholders and interests of various parties. So at first it was a bit surprising, but it meant that I got to work on all these other cool things, like work on using things like AI and machine learning for condition monitoring of power plant components, and seeing how you can use these brand new tools in really high, you know, quality assurance, high reliability, and safety systems, and see how those two worlds can interface, knowing that nuclear traditionally is very rigid in that regard. And so so research has really been kind of integral in informing my role today, and having that curiosity that kind of drove me to do a PhD is really what allows me to work on kind of a variety of topics in nuclear R&D. As far as my goals for the future, it's really interesting to keep developing kind of a more advanced skill set, tackling more complex problems. It's really, there's no limits in nuclear R&D. You know, you can start just kind of working on a $100,000 project. Next thing you know, you got your own $100,000 projects. Next thing you know, you're leading a $2 million project. And so it's really a ladder that you can keep climbing. And so that's kind of what I'm looking at. I hope that was a complete answer.
Nice, thank you. And last but not least, Abdel.
Hey everyone, yeah, it's Abdel here, calling from Belgium at the moment. Yeah, I'm pretty happy to be included in this panel. I'm also wearing a mechanical engineering shirt, well, hoodie kind of thing that I kind of picked up, I think last year, well, in my last year in 2009. Anyway, so that's how I keep it, right? It has a lot of stains, so kind of good memory there. Yeah, so I guess it's kind of important. I'm gonna talk a little bit about what I've been doing. So I mechanical engineering in 2009. Then I went and did a Master of Engineering Design actually at the ETB building. I think if this is still there, that's 2010. So actually that got me, I was focusing on renewable energy, and I was thinking, okay, this is exactly what I'm going to do. renewable energy, solar power, and so that actually got me a position on one of those internships, part of the program, that I actually got to do it back in my first home in Egypt. And when I came back, I had experience in the solar industry, so I worked directly in the solar industry in Ontario, building solar farms. That was really exciting for about 2 years or 2.5, almost 3 years. So that taught me a lot about, just dealing in the business, right? Dealing with managers, dealing with clients, and being on site, and driving a lot all the time for being, always on site as a site engineer there for one of the bigger solar farms at the time. Right now, it's probably considered a small solar farm. Nevertheless, it was very enriching. But it was always my decision to go back to academia and to continue in the academic path. So then I decided to do my PhD in 2013, basically the beginning of 2014. I actually did it with the current dean of engineering, so Dr. Ishwar Puri, right? He was kind enough to take me in, and it was kind of funny because I really didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I just knew I wanted to do my PhD, and he basically told me, "Yeah, I'm doing some nanoparticle stuff." So I said, "That's great, I'm going to do that." So if you think about it, it's quite a funny way of doing a PhD if you don't really exactly know what you want to do. But I made it my own. I think that's the main thing here, is that sometimes you'll be thrown into you're going to run with something and you just have to make it your own. So this is basically what I did. And one thing led to another, and soon enough, I found myself going into more on the biology side of things. So it was first material science and nanoparticles and material sciences, but then it turned into biomaterials, and then finally it turned into 3D tissue engineering. And that was towards the end of my PhD, and it got me very excited about, how cell-fate decision making in tissues, and so then I applied for a job outside of Canada to gain some experience outside, and that's how I ended up here in Belgium, in the University of Leuven, where I'm doing research on the development of the neural tube or neural systems, central nervous system, and in early developmental time points using organoids. So these are just small, mini, three-dimensional cell cultures that you kind of grow in a dish, and you try to see how they can mimic early developmental time points. And we're trying to solve things like diseases that have to do with developmental diseases such as spina bifida and things of that sort. So basically, they're neurological diseases. And that's what I'm doing. It's still quite mechanical in nature, in the sense that I'm studying the mechanical forces and its effect on cell fate, on stem cell differentiation. So it's quite an exciting field. It's a relatively new field, so there's a lot of area to explore. And my research at Mac has been integral to me because, and that's probably going to answer a lot of the other questions, is that it's very important to have momentum, but it's equally very important to be able to pivot all the time if something doesn't work pretty well. And so this is something that I've learned a lot at Mac, the importance of being able to just pivot when pivot your research. At the same time, you have to have some resiliency in order to keep going, because otherwise, I mean, everyone probably here knows doing a PhD it's not always the easiest thing, but it's.
How many times do you consider to quit during your PhD?
Yes. No, I remember. I would say probably twice or something. But indeed, it's not. It's very rewarding, and that's absolutely the most amazing thing. I think I echo everyone here who said how rewarding it is and how important it is. The industry experience helped me a lot, so this is something I fully recommend. It's quite yeah, I mean, for me, it just taught me about management in general, and that I really applied a lot, even today. So yeah, so I mean, that's what I've been doing. So I hope you have other questions. I'll be very happy to answer them.
Yeah, thanks everyone for sharing. It's very nice to meet you. So next, I was wondering if you had any memorable stories from your time as a McMaster researcher. Anyone could pitch in if you have anything.
Sure. So maybe I'll start by saying I was really lucky to be able to travel to a lot of conferences while I did my PhD. So I think, it was a great opportunity for me to see new places, meet new people, try new food, and, just learn about new cultures. So I would think, that for me was kind of the most memorable experience out of my PhD. It did give me that opportunity. And, as I traveled, I networked, I built a really strong and big and wide network in my research area and other areas in software engineering, which I'm really grateful to have. It does really help you understand what other people are working on, different areas, different parts of the world, and then could open up opportunities in the future. So traveling, I think, is the most memorable thing for me.
Yeah, I can share mine too. So for me, that was a memorable experience. So during my PhD, I was working on a project sponsored by a French company for developing new polymeric materials and multi-layer foam structures for being used for making the body of a city car. So it was a 4-year project. I had lots of ups and downs with my result during that 4 years. But I was very proud about my work when I got invited as a speaker to a conference in Lyon in France, where the company unveiled the car and I was able to have a quick test drive. So to me, that was the purpose of research, and to inform the action and have a meaningful impact.
For me, I would say it's not a particular memorable story. It's just my PhD allowed me to kind of, have some lifelong meaningful friendships that, with a group of friends that we're still in touch, and we still, get together outside of COVID, back when you could get together with people, and, in a way that is much harder in a professional environment that's, has a business structure and is rigid, where you don't, you're too work focused. And but in a research environment, you could both do your research and kind of have this social aspect that can be quite meaningful. So I'm quite grateful for that.
If I say anything, I would say probably my first publication. I just probably wanted to prove to myself that I can actually do it, coming back from the industry, and everyone's saying, "Oh yeah, it's it's probably you should have just continued straight from your master's to your PhD, because it's what's the point of doing in the industry?" I got a lot of those, but then after my first paper, I think that was the most kind of rewarding thing. And I remember walking at night towards, there's a bench, I think, close to Hamilton Hall in the back there at night, and it was a little bit foggy, and I just sat there, had a coffee, and we got the acceptance letter that the paper is accepted. And I just soaked in the whole thing. I mean, there was no one around. It was just me alone with a little bit of those yellow lights there at night, and I guess that was a very memorable point in time. I think I'll ever forget that.
That's awesome. So in your experience, what would you say is the biggest similarity and difference between researching in a university lab and working, as you say, in industry or your job right now?
Okay, maybe I can start with that. So research still is a part of my job, is what I do. So the nature of research, in my opinion, always stays the same. So it's a systematic process of collecting and analyzing data and information to better understand a phenomenon that we are interested or concerned. So the biggest similarity between researching in academia and what I do is the fact that the science remains the same. And if I want to think about the difference, maybe I would say about the freedom of, exploring the subject. So industry goals are aligned with the market requirements and are based mostly on supply and demand. And whatever product is in demand, most likely your project will be focused on that specific product development. But in academia, you have a freedom of exploring different subjects, and basically it's up to you to design and pursue your own project.
Just to build on what Miriam has said, I would say, yeah, it's being someone who's still doing research, but in a kind of a nuclear industry environment, the nature of research kind of remains the same. It's still unstructured. You're still kind of doing stuff that no one has any idea how to do. So it's like, it always feels like you're figuring things out for the first time and doing things over and over to get them right. So that doesn't change. What changes in my experience is back in grad school, you have all the time in the world, or your time, you're expected to spend all your time working on whatever you're working on, but there is no money. You know, if you're trying to buy a $200 piece of equipment, you have to have a 2-hour meeting with your supervisor, and do we really need this? And is there a cheaper way to do it? And can't you find some free parts to do it? But now it's the opposite problem. You barely have any time to spend on things, but usually resources to buy equipment or get trained on software or stuff like that, or that there's plenty of that. It's more that you have to be very, very strategic with your time.
Yeah, I can go next. I think the biggest similarity is that within a research team, as well as an industry, and I'm in engineering now, so I'm not, doing research per se, but you're working in diverse teams, so diverse backgrounds, diverse ideas. So you really learn to, become a team player and welcome different ideas and seek out feedback from different people. The biggest difference is in research, you're working on an idea that maybe, years down the road could be realized in the real world, and then you could really see the impact. Whereas in industry, that impact you see a lot earlier, and it could be really huge, right? Like, the vehicles we work on, we're talking about millions of people being impacted. So that's kind of that difference there. Like in research, like I think Abdel mentioned, you write a paper and then that's kind of the biggest result you get out of your work, and it's really exciting. But in industry, you see it realized differently in the real world, which is different, but also kind of exciting in the same way.
Yeah, I'll just pitch in here very quickly. Yeah, it's for me, I still wake up in the morning. I still go to a lab, so I still go to university. I just changed colors, so there are colors. There's not maroon anymore; it's blue, but it's the same scenario. But the main thing is after PhD, as a postdoc, it gets a little bit more serious. You start seeing the business side of academia and the fact that yeah, now I have to have a grant to stay as a postdoc, and next step. And that's what I'm doing right now, because we just was able to publish a paper, thankfully, so I'm free to go. Essentially, after this step, to pursue another career, to pursue another position as hopefully a assistant professor somewhere. But for that, you need to find grants, and you need to find a lot of people are going to give you money, essentially. So you almost become a professional beggar almost for money, I think. But it's you have to be able to do that, and that's I think, yeah, I feel like it's not as, you don't have a very nice safety net as maybe as a job in the industry. So it's a little bit different, I guess, in that sense. But in terms of similarity, yeah, for me, when I worked in the industry, I wasn't doing any research. Of course, now I'm doing a lot of research. So compared to similarities to what I've been doing at Mac, I think a lot of the times I'm doing a lot less research now, and I'm supervising a lot more students, and I'm leading like 2 or 3 different projects that are under me. So I'm starting to do less and less actual research in the lab, and more, you know, writing grants and things like this. So I would say that would be, yeah, these are the similarities and differences that I see.
Nice. So I hear that for a lot of us, research never stops. And even if it does, then the skills that we acquired throughout it stay with us. So if there was someone who was thinking about getting into research or has just started researching, what advice would you give them? And I just started researching for the first time, so I really need the answer to this question.
So I can start. I think it was mentioned before, you know, you start out doing research on a particular problem, but you might not end up on that problem when you're done. So, you know, you have to be really open to kind of that idea that you're going to have to pivot. You're going to have to, you know, learn from what you've experienced, whether, you know, it's good or bad, but you will have to pivot into different directions, and that's okay. The other thing I would say is allow yourself to fail. So, you know, if you have an idea and you're not sure about it, don't eliminate it from the beginning. Try it out. It might work out, it might not, but if it's okay, if you do fail, then you use that learning to kind of pivot into a different direction.
Yeah, I would like to add exactly, I agree with Sahr. So research is a marathon, it's not a sprint. So do what you do because you love it, and don't let failures stop you. So because this is a part of the research, and there are so many ways to contribute to the scientific community, and you just need to identify your strengths and then move that forward.
Yeah, and just to add on to what Sahr and Miriam are saying, going back to what I had mentioned was my particular experience. You know, even when you're hired because of what you did your research in, with the expectation that you will work in that area, you know, the industry environment expects you to be flexible because, you know, market forces change and governments switch around and government priorities change. So you have to be willing to pivot and be flexible and be open-minded, knowing that a lot of the skills you've used for research, you can transfer to different areas. And it might not be straightforward and not automatic, but you have to have that flexibility in mind and not be afraid to figure out what you might need to get yourself up to speed. And as to, yeah, and the other aspect again is there's no obvious path in research. There just isn't. There's not a procedure. Here's how you get your answer. There are just kind of, you know, there's a framework that you can use to get to your solution, how you iterate, how you try and fail until you get where you're headed. And it can be quite frustrating sometimes for even myself. I started out as an undergrad summer research assistant, and to realize that the professor that hired me didn't have the answers when I expected professors to always have the answers, right? And so it took a little while to realize, no, like they don't, if he did know, I wouldn't have that job, right? And so you know, he might know a lot about a lot of things and might be able to guide you through the process, but a lot of it has to come from you, that willingness to go down rabbit holes and sort problems out.
Yeah, I think I echo again, everyone. I think this is absolutely correct. Well, if I am to add anything, well, I'll add 2 things. is that the world is becoming much more interdisciplinary. So you really, most likely when you do your research, unless it's a very specific niche, then you're probably going to have to work with other departments and other people that have different backgrounds. When I first started working here, it was quite different than just engineering research because everyone, there's no problem. They don't have an actual problem that they want to solve. It's mostly like, it's just, well, biologists and developmental biology, and just a whole bunch of embryologists that are saying, okay, look what the embryo is doing. I wonder why is it doing that? Well, you know, there's no real tangible necessarily problem that they're trying to solve, and that, so I had to rethink a little bit how they think, and eventually, you know, I became accustomed to how their thought process actually works, but still use my engineering background and fall back on it because that's what drives me as a person, and that seemed to work out very well. So just don't forget that there's a lot of different researchers out there that are probably very different from you, and that brings me to the next point, and that is, you are going to be working with humans at the end of the day, and that's very important. That's actually a very important aspect of research, that you're not alone in the lab. The coffee breaks that you take with your friends or anything, this really does impact your research and impact your environment. So by all means, never try to make this a toxic environment, because actually, even to this year brought this to a much attention, that a lot of people here, for example, quit because of the environment becoming a little bit toxic. People just didn't have a lot of, yeah, they just got bothered by each other, and that brought this idea of, yeah, we have to be a little bit more understanding each other a little bit better. So yeah, the human aspect of research is quite important, and that's something to take into account when you're going to do your research.
So I know that before a lot of us start researching, we have different expectations on what it's going to be like. But what's something that you didn't expect and were surprised to find out for research?
So I can start with that. So it's for me, the most interesting thing about research, it's how you can turn mistakes into learning experiences. So mistakes are part of the job description of being a researcher, and we all had experiences where things haven't turned out exactly how we expected. So, and I had to learn that the failed results could be as valuable as the successful results. And each mistake will teach you a new lesson, and each lesson will bring you closer to your goals.
Does anyone else have anything to add, or should we move on to the next question?
Sure, I can add a short one here. Actually, this one's funny because I think the surprise I'm going to share, I've been, I guess, in research since 2012, or actually 2010 if I count the undergrad years. And but this just occurred to me like maybe a few months ago. So it's kind of interesting. But it's actually relates to what Abdurrahman has said, which is that research can be very interdisciplinary. And the aspect I want to build on is in some, maybe in academia, it's not always the case, but sometimes, or at least in my experience, it's interdisciplinary, but it's within your control. So you can kind of build kind of synergistic relationships with people you want to work with in other fields, and so maybe you can mix computer science and mechanical engineering, or work on electrical and mechanical or biomedical or whatever, but you have that within your control and you get time to prepare for it. But in other cases, you can just have a problem statement that's thrown at you from a customer that, for instance, all of a sudden requires you to have all this chemistry knowledge as a mechanical engineer, which you know, when I was in my undergrad, I was like, chemistry, never gonna need that, you know? And I was like, oh, as long as I stick to fluid mechanics, solid mechanics, I don't care about chemistry. But no, I'm leading this project right now where we're doing this mechanical R&D program, but they're expecting us to have very strict chemistry requirements. And so next thing you know, I might have access to a lot of experts within our organization on chemistry, but they don't know what is needed here. So it's still up to you to understand and be able to translate the customer's requirement into something that the experts can support you in. And so I guess where I'm going with that is if you're at the undergrad level, don't think that you can just write off part of your curriculum as not of interest to you because it's not really relevant. It's all important, and I can't overstate that.
Yeah, I'd like just to add something here, and yeah, excellent points. I mean, this is right on point, and if I have to say something, I would say I was really absolutely surprised by I'm not trying to be a little bit metaphysical here or anything, but it's really the similarities between fields in terms of the governing whatever it is, the design of the universe, I guess, if you want to call it. But there's a lot of similarities that you see coming up again and again, from fluid mechanics to biological interactions to yeah, it was really, yeah, and that occurred to me like maybe last year when we were doing some analysis on forces between cells, and how similar that was to a lot of basically the equations is essentially are pretty much the same as this spring kind of equation that comes back again in electron oscillation, for example, and things like this. So this is the thing that I didn't really necessarily expect it. I thought at some point kind of science or knowledge diverges so much because there's so many fields, but if you look deeper enough, then everything just converges back, it seems like it. And that is something that from just a scientist point of view, or well, engineer scientist point of view, really struck me that yeah, this actually is true. So yeah, that was something that was pretty surprising to me.
So what would you say is the most important technical and non-technical skill that you gained from researching and you brought with yourself into the working world?
I can start, Jane. So, technical would be, in my area of expertise, I guess, software design principles, software safety methods, model-based approaches. So I guess, that's really the core topics that I focus on in my research. Non-technical, maybe this also feeds into the previous question. You'd be surprised that you'll learn a lot of things while doing research that you could take into a job in industry later on, like all sorts of, what we call them soft skills related to like project management, communication skills through writing papers, giving presentations, people management skills. We laugh about, having to manage your supervisor, right? So like learning, how to establish good relationships, but also get what you need out of them. So you really need to kind of have that way with people. So you do learn that during your PhD. And, just the things that I hear all the time about PhD students who go work in industry, they're really great at working with under uncertainty, right? So there's so many unknowns, but they can deal with it. It doesn't kind of throw them off. They're able to kind of deal with ambiguity and uncertainty and still think and be able to come up with a solution. So those are some of the things that I've seen.
Yeah, if I can pitch in here, yeah, I think technical, if I have to say technical things, it would be, I guess maybe the most important course for me was heat transfer, although I did horribly on it. But next, yeah. But next that I know that when I started doing my PhD, then the equation kind of started making sense to me, and I became all of a sudden like an expert in fluid mechanics and heat transfer. And then these equations actually also they apply so much to what I'm doing right now. So that the ease with which an engineer can deal with math that has a purpose, if I can may say that, right, is quite is very, very important. That's something I took with me for sure. Non-technical, yeah, I guess it's the same as what Sahr said. Managing your manager is a very important skill to have, and yeah, managing your supervisor also the same things. I've been told before, yeah, you don't have to give all your data all at once, for example, so that they still look forward for things to see. But not to that extent. But in general, I think it's important to have to understand each other and be again, you're dealing with humans, so you have to understand that part, and yeah, you're gonna have to convince others with the information that you have to present, to defend yourself, to defend your research. And these people that will be judging you, or not judging you, but evaluating you are or your peers are humans, right? So don't forget that. That again, that would be the non-technical part, is how to deal with this on a daily basis and so on.
Just to add on to that, for technical skills, I would say what I found was really, I guess I didn't realize it at the time, but in your PhD or master's, you really have time to dig deep and learn a new skill. And it's something that you seldom have the time to do in the industry unless there's a management decision to train you on a particular piece of software or tool or develop a capability. And those things can take time. But in my PhD, I decided that I would learn ANSYS. I just went and learned ANSYS for 4 months and read the tutorials and did cases and got to use it in my PhD, and it was good enough. And high performance computing and open MPI and all these things that you might need just to be able to do your research and stuff like when you're doing experimental design, you need to program data acquisition software, stuff like that now it might take years if a company wanted to develop those skills, because they might have to, okay, well, our professional development allowance might only be this much for our branch, and so you have to prioritize and do it strategically. But being able to come with those skills already can be very, very helpful. You don't really realize that until you're in a different environment that's kind of more goal-driven and result and output-driven. Non-technical, same. I would echo what a lot of my co-panelists are saying on networking. I think the skills you develop networking at conferences, it kind of feels useless to go to these mixers and just kind of stand. But go into it with an open mind. Just learn about people's research, what people are up to, what people's experience is like, what their career path is, and those things pay dividends down the line. It might not be clear how, but those are the same skills you need when you're trying to develop business relationships with customers or with people who are gonna give you useful inputs to the work you're doing and help you move along projects, or even, you have to network within your own company. CNL, for instance, has 3,000 employees, right? So there's networking to be done even within your own company. And I can't even begin to imagine how much networking you'd have to do at GM. So that's a non-technical skill I would echo. A non-technical skill I wish I had acquired when doing research and would be writing good emails. I know it sounds like ridiculous, but you'd be surprised how hard it is to write a good email. I think research mindset is that people have all the time in the world to read our blocks of text, but people in the industry get hundreds of emails a day. So it's very skillful to give them, not just write them a 2-line email, but give them, you know, actionable information with the right amount of detail. Like your manager, when they're saying you have to manage your supervisor and manager, that's one way to do it, is you have to give them the actionable information that they can use to help you move things along or solve problems, move hurdles out of your way.
Hopefully that wasn't directed at me, because I know I've been sending you guys a lot of emails in the past few weeks, but I'm trying my best to be concise.
You've been great, Jane.
Yeah. You've been great. I'm talking about myself. I look back at the emails I've written to people and they're like, what? I don't know, what are they supposed to get out of this? It's just 3 pages long. What?
Yeah, no, that's for sure something that you need to learn, like, you know, executive summaries, bullet points with, like, you know, really targeted questions that sometimes you can even like boil down to a yes or no answer is the best, because all it needs is for them to respond to that binary answer. It's much easier.
All right, so you guys have come a long way since being students, and now you're successful working people, but what's the thing that you miss most from being a student?
The Graduate Softball Association. It was a lot of fun. Softball during the summer, I miss it so much. It was, yeah.
For me, I would say it's just being on campus. I have yet to see I mean, there's probably a lot of campuses out there, but I am a McMaster for some reason has a particular feel to it, and yeah, I just miss campus quite a lot, and I haven't yet seen a campus like it. So, and just walking around the buildings, whether at night or in the morning, you know, going to class or something like this. Just these are memories that are very good memories, and I miss coffee shops because here they don't have coffee shops. So that's something, they don't really have coffee shops that are on campus. That's one of the things. But yeah, these are moments that I definitely miss for sure.
Yeah, I can quickly say about my thing. So something that I miss the most is the vibrant social life on campus. So the social interactions are very easy and simple. So school is a great place to get to know people and build wonderful relationships and friendships. So try to, you know, do it the best way that you can, because it gets a little bit more complicated as you go along.
I would agree, yeah. So the social life for sure, the events, being on campus. Believe it or not, I do miss like taking courses. Not all of them, but you know, in general, I do miss you know, learning, taking courses, again, conferences, things like that. But something I miss the least is I don't know, that feeling that you always had to, like, you know, do something about your research. Like you felt that you had to stay up at night or work on the weekend. I don't feel that right now with a 9-to-5 job, which I really value, you know, with a young family. So that stress is kind of off my shoulders, but yeah, I definitely miss the campus and the social life.
Yeah, that leads us to the second part of this question. So does anyone else want to share what they miss the least about being a student?
Exams. I think I absolutely resent them. I mean, I won't lie about this. Yeah, I just don't, the pressure it puts on someone. I mean, and I'm a postdoc now, so I do write exams and I give exams, so it's quite, and I teach as well, so it's quite it's tables have turned a little bit, but yeah, it's something I really miss the least, that kind of rush or pressure before an exam. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it was the early morning classes. I always try to avoid them if it was possible.
And for me, I'd say I would echo Sahar's comment on really the lack of kind of work-life balance. It just always felt like it never stopped. You know, your PhD started on day one and finished when you defended, and you know, you might take a week away, but your mind really isn't off it. And so that was a thing that's the thing I don't miss, and it was kind of the same for undergrad and masters as well.
Okay, and I think we have time for one more question, and this is a good way to end. But what makes research so important? If there was an average person on the street who didn't really know about it, they haven't been to university, let alone done any research, what would you tell them about the importance of research?
Yeah, I can start with that. So I think there's two ways to look at it. So research is important for you as an individual because it allows you to kind of go in depth into a particular topic, potentially become an expert in that subject area. And, you know, for something like safety of software in self-driving vehicles, which is what I do, like industry is always looking for people who are expert in those topics. So it will open up a lot of opportunities for you. Why is research important for humanity? Well, it's because if we continue to do what we already know, then we're not going to really advance and innovate. So every company that looks to advance and innovate on their work, like General Motors has an R&D department that focuses on research and development. So that is something that humanity needs for us to advance and develop.
Yeah, I can add, absolutely. I agree with Sahr about this, subjects, but I can just add that, research is essential for improvement in our life. So it's a tool for learning. It provides us with the information, with the knowledge that we need for solving our problems and making decisions. And without research, we have to rely only on intuition and luck, I would say. So just consider the situation that we are right now. So research is saving us from this pandemic. In 1980, more than 50 million people couldn't survive the Spanish flu. And today, the COVID pandemic is being managed because of the huge advances in the science in the last 100 years and because of the collaborations of the scientists in different fields, medical science, data science, mathematics, engineering, and you can name it, robotics, biology, psychology, and many more. So research can find answers to the things that are unknown and filling the gaps in the knowledge and changing the way that we live.
Just to echo what my co-panelists are saying, with climate change, if we just keep doing things the way we're doing them, we're kind of headed not so good path. Things are not really going to be great. But the way we get ourselves out of those bad outcomes is through research, is through figuring out different ways to produce energy, better ways to consume energy, and that comes from everywhere. It comes from all sorts of sectors, from energy, from automotive and materials used in all these sectors. And so research is really key to unlocking and solving these problems that feel impossible to us right now, but hopefully we'll see ourselves through them.
Yeah, if I say anything, I'll probably say that research, well, for me anyway, research is more like a state of mind. And many of the problems that I think everyone said already of finding work-life balance, it's also very hard. It continues with me to this day. So I feel like I have one very long PhD. So, but it is, for me, it's a state of mind, and it's almost as a necessity to essentially quench this thirst that we have for us to make sense of what's around us. And I think it's a human condition anyway, to be able to just to go into research, whether it's in academia or in just, you know, in daily life. I think people maybe do research in certain ways that we may not consider as research, as scientific research or engineering research. But just to get back to of course, yeah, why research is important. It's obviously, and I'm not gonna repeat what everyone said. I think it's quite obvious why it is important. And even fundamental research is also very important, and it's quite often overlooked because it might not have very immediate industrial applications. But we never know, just as we never know where, as it was already said before, we don't know where, you never know what is the right path for research, or there's no exactly one right path for research. You also don't know what is the research that will make a difference 50 years from now, right? So, which is why fundamental research, as well as the clear industrial research, is also very, very important for the fabric of our society today. So, and without it, I don't think, yeah, I don't think we stand really a good chance to surviving the next 100 years. So, yeah, that's how I'll end it.
What a great way to end. Thank you so much, everyone. That's all the time we have today. But a big round of applause to all the alumni. You guys were awesome. Thanks for sharing your wisdom. And thanks to the audience. I'm sure you gained some insider knowledge on engineering and research, and hopefully you enjoyed the event. We have events like this every week. Next week is a workshop on how to do online presentations. And we also have socials where you can connect with other student researchers or incoming first years. Every time you come to one of our events, your name is entered into a draw for a chance to win a gift card at the end of the summer. So make sure to follow our social media. It's on the screen right now, and join our Microsoft team. Tell your friends as well. It was a pleasure hosting today. Big thanks to our alumni once again. And that's it. Enjoy the rest of your evenings.
Thank you, Jane. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thanks,
Jane.
everyone.
Have a good night, everyone.
It's a pleasure.
You too. Take care,
Nice
guys.
meeting you all.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Yeah.